Welcome to the work session for the Village of Pleasantville Board of Trustees. Today is Monday, April 10. We've just come out of an executive session on contractual matters and matters of personnel, and we're now in work session. The first item we had was a discussion with the property owner at 80 Highview Terrace regarding a request for the village right of way. Are you there, sir?
I am. Can you hear me?
Can.
Great. So I'm not sure really what I'm supposed to do here, but I'll kind of give you like an overview.
We're not sure either. Every week we wonder what we should do.
Okay, perfect. So I sent in a survey and some pictures of the current state of affairs, but basically, I guess it's probably close to 22 years ago, the previous owners of the house built adjacent to the Highview Terrace parking for our house. We purchased the house, I guess 16 and a half years ago, and we've been using it ever since. And, after 22 years, things start deteriorating and it's kind of time to repave everything. And, we talked to the building inspector, to try to get a permit to redo all the asphalt. And he mentioned that the portion along Highview Terrace was never, I guess, legalized, or the previous owners never got like an encroachment agreement for that portion along the road. Mm-hmm. And so, we're basically just asking for permission to use that. And basically at that time, we would go and repave our driveway and the portion that's along Highview Terrace.
Okay, so as you obviously know, living there all these years, there are quite a few similar circumstances based on the undulating topography up the hill. Yeah. You are in a flat zone, mm-hmm. And I mean, it's just sort of an interesting circumstance where part of the reason the village code requires these arrangements is we try to avoid front yard parking, which is what this qualifies as. Mm-hmm. But your neighborhood has lots of it for obvious topographical reasons.
Yeah.
And I'll speak for myself, which is one would be hard pressed to say no to ratifying a condition that's existed all these many years.
Yeah, I mean, I worry in some circumstances about the precedent, particularly where there's an issue of potentially putting a sidewalk in place, but I don't think that really applies to this street.
It doesn't. I mean, I will say, and having nothing to do with you, this predates you. If this didn't exist and you came forward to do it, I think it might be a harder decision to make because you clearly have quite a bit of land. You clearly could do other things that didn't involve paving in the right of way, but given its history, it seems like a reasonable request to me. Other comments?
Well, I certainly think if these things were done years ago, and it's common in the neighborhood that outside of any other development we're doing, that we should allow owners to responsibly come forward and legalize them.
Yes, for sure. So Eric, in most of these circumstances in the past, we've referred to the planning commission?
Correct. We have a resolution on tonight's agenda to do that for comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we'll send it over to the planning commission, which is just part of the process. Do you know whether the fence is legalized?
The fence is legalized. We just put that in, I want to say like maybe 2 years ago. All right. And we do have an agreement, I think that predated this fence, like the previous fence was legal. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Well, we appreciate you going through the legal process. We really do.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shock, I figured we just go ahead and pave it and make it all brand new. But, now that did I get disconnected?
No, you're here.
Oh, sorry, the video cut out. Since, obviously like we don't want to do anything illegal. So.
Well, we appreciate that. And as you have heard, we are sympathetic to your goal, and I think we'll send it off the planning commission. I would imagine they will say the same. Obviously can't speak for them. So thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
All righty. Okay. Discussion regarding outdoor dining. We see Michael from Vela,
Yes.
Alan from Seoul are both here.
Sorry, I was late.
No, it's no problem. You're not late. We just got started. We were late. So I assume both of you want to see this come back.
I would love to see it. Yes.
So you want to just elaborate on that?
Well, we're still trying to dig out. I mean, business has definitely improved over previous years. So I will not use that as an excuse to help us, keep the doors open. But we are buried under a mountain of debt that we'd love to get out. And outside, I mean, absolutely helps us.
Right.
Absolutely.
Alan?
I would have to say exactly the same thing. We're still trying to dig out too, and we probably will be for years. And I think in the case of Wheeler Avenue, it's the street could use a little bit of rehabilitating. It could use a little bit more life going on there, and I think that's helpful.
Yeah.
So I agree with all of that in the general sense. What would you guys say about the impact of loss of parking?
We were given 4 spaces from the restaurant last year.
I thought it was it 4? You would know better than I.
I think it was bigger at first.
Yeah, I thought it was 6.
But when the street was repaved, we lost 2 on either side. One to the bookstore and one to the tape measure.
And
It was fine.
4 was fine.
4 was fine because at that time, we didn't have to do the same kind of required social distancing. Before, all the tables had to be 8 feet apart. So we didn't, it wasn't as impactful as it was, the first time. So we were able to live within 4 spaces.
And if you could write your own rules, what would be the months you want that?
I would say the beginning of May until the end of September for us.
May, June, July, August, September, 5 months.
5 months.
What would you say, Alan?
I would probably go further than that. I mean, I would go till the end of November, and I would go early March. As soon as it's warm enough, people are out there. I know people are out there in the middle of the winter, just not many. But it's gonna be
I mean, I have a ringside seat on the Wheeler side, and it was of almost no value December, January, February, right? Was it of value to you? I mean, I literally never saw anybody there.
There were people there, not people for our business for the most part. There were a lot of people eating Sundance there and that sort of thing from time to time. Very little activity when the weather is bad.
Yeah, so I guess my point about that, separate from whatever the overall decision is, my personal opinion is we shouldn't keep it there in the winter regardless. You're okay with that, Michael? And you?
I think I'm okay with that too. My biggest fear is that when it goes away from the winter, it never comes back.
So then the other challenge is we provided it there to you guys because we could. What would we do if other people said, I wanted to? Like, whatever, estate place.
Right. So basically you're talking about like a code for it.
Yeah, I mean, what I worry about, I think when we first did it, and I wholeheartedly endorsed it, is, everybody realized we're in a crazy time and people are at risk, and the vibrancy of businesses and are at risk, and we should help in any way we can. That said, we could do it for you guys because we could. If others had asked for it, it would have been way harder because of where they are. And there are some businesses like on Bedford, for example, where it's not our road and it's clearly so narrow anyway that it wasn't even an option.
Well, that happened to us. And we have a sister restaurant in Larchmont. So we didn't get any outdoor dining.
Just because you couldn't, right?
We couldn't because it was a state road.
Right. Although it's plenty wide enough that you could have.
Well,
if Larchmont had been in charge. Right.
They couldn't do it. So other people in the village,
right,
they received outdoor spaces.
Yeah.
I understand that
there's some inequity there, just based on your location.
Yeah.
But I think there are very few, steakhouse being one example, there are very few other on Wheeler Avenue, all of these, Fat Root has their own outdoor space in Jackson Alley. Plum Street has their own outdoor space in the
Right.
extended sidewalk area. Same thing with Falafel Taco and the pizza place even. There are very few places that don't have any outdoor space.
Yeah,
And Dolphin decided last year that they didn't want it, and I gather don't want it now. Is that?
yeah.
I don't fully know, but
I
that
was
seems to
just
be the
there.
indication.
When I couldn't get in, I went for dinner.
Yeah, he has indicated that he's not interested.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that if there's a larger demand, that's something that we need to think through, kind of holistically. But if the demand is limited to you guys for now, I feel like it provides a service to the village as a whole. Like, obviously it benefits you guys, which is great, but I personally feel like it's something that is good for the village as the whole. I think it adds something to the character of the village. It adds a kind of liveliness. And I know in the case of you, Alan, that people from other businesses also avail themselves of those tables. The last time we had this discussion, we had quite a few people in the room in support of maintaining the outdoor seating. And so I think that there's quite an interest in the village. So that's where I'm coming from, at least on this issue.
Thank you for saying that, because that's exactly how our guests feel. They will go inside, but they will also be outside. They absolutely love it. So
To me, it's one of the few positive things that came out of the pandemic, honestly. Like, there aren't many, but I don't
So
know.
how could we,
Yeah.
in the end, several things are flying around, and obviously we don't quite know how the whole parking environment is going to settle out, if it will ever settle out in the post-pandemic world. We're certainly in an environment now where we don't have the demand we used to have for commuter parking, and yet we have street parking demand over the top at certain times of day. And all of that is going on in an environment where the Burns is not operating at the level of attendance that they used to, in part pandemic recovery and in part because they're in the midst of these renovations and have had a couple of people out at a given time. So there is the hope for a future where on a busy night, the Burns will be 100% busy and you guys will be 100% busy. The flack I get is flipped from the flack I used to get, which is, are you kidding? I can't get anywhere near Wheeler or Washington on a Friday night, even on a Sunday afternoon. It's crazy. It's insane. As opposed to years back, I used to get the flack that commuter parking was an issue. So, I mean, what do you think about that? And what do you hear from your customers about parking issues? Do you hear anything? Both of you.
I have not heard. I guess I agree with you about the Burns. The Burns is definitely subdued right now. So nobody's saying to us about available parking to get to our restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a big factor of that is just because the Burns is its capacity.
Yeah. And did they used to complain about parking?
No.
I mean, so people,
People never really complain to people, but I used to have a restaurant in the old village and people used to be like red faced and angry at me because they couldn't park.
they still are.
It's like when the landlord asks us to come back.
Right.
It's
How about you, Alan? Do people complain about parking?
Yeah, well, I would anecdotally, I can say that I have needed to point out the parking in the back to people on a number of locations, on a number of occasions. And we have a lot of customers who walk to and from the place, and a lot of people coming along the street. I haven't had a lot of complaining about the lack of parking, especially in the case where somebody's pulled up out front, they're trying to find a place to park and they find out about the parking lot, if they're from out of town.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the parking.
I mean, it's funny. These are complaints that lots of communities only wish they had, right? I mean, it's in a roundabout way, a good thing that it's difficult, but what would this look like if this got institutionalized and were an annual event, an annual thing, as compared to, dragging these bomb-proof barriers out?
What do you mean?
Aesthetically, what it look like?
I mean, obviously it's just interesting. I notice in Brooklyn and Manhattan now there's a whole to do about that, and a lot of them have deteriorated and all that. But you had, essentially like porch trellises and 1x3s between you and speeding buses and taxi cabs, right? There was nothing that would stop a vehicle. And here in our little village environment, we felt it was necessary to have something that would actually stop a vehicle from running into you, which I think we need. But it's ugly, and it has a transient sort of quality to it.
Right. Well, at the midsummer last year, we did start to address that. We started putting out bars and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Alan has done the same.
Yeah, so it's and if it was an annual thing, I think it would be definitely interested in investing in ways to make it not so.
Well, there also aren't there aesthetically kind of covered concrete barriers that look like fake wood or look.
No doubt, something's out there. So, big picture, long term, and there are all kinds of reasons this would be hard, maybe impossible to do, utilities, but if the sidewalk were wider in some places, to create room for tables either outboard of the regular sidewalk or against your storefront with a sidewalk that got you around it.
Obviously, anything that would help us maintain outside that.
I mean, on Washington, money not being an object, it would be pretty manageable, right? Because it's so wide there.
So
Obviously Wheeler's a slightly more complicated proposition.
Yeah, and then there's the question of where the utilities are and whether you're putting sidewalks off the utilities, moving catch basins and all that. It's never as easy as it looks, but I mean, in the end, it would be obviously nice in a perfect world to have wider, more commodious sidewalks everywhere, as we're about to get on Manville, and as we've already seen on the Burn side of Manville. But doing it elsewhere is a big expense. So,
see, Mr. Rooney, do you have any comment on this? I think in the past you've had some opinions on this.
Well, I've had my opinions, just the fact the traffic in both areas is usually pretty bad. And the barriers just make it worse with traffic. Parking still is not convenient on those two streets, having nothing to do with Con Edison at the moment. I hear the two reasons for having them, and I mean, I couldn't dispute the reasons. They're good reasons, but I'm looking, having a little aside from this on Washington Avenue at the end, in front of Dunkin' Donuts, where they're starting to mark off where the new curbing is going to go. Unless I misread the markings on the run, it has nothing to do with the restaurants. It looks like it's going to jut out really far and take one of the two lanes away, meaning that the traffic coming down Washington Avenue at Dunkin' Donuts will only be one lane to go left or right coming on. Because there's going to be a curve there, a big jut out curve like they did on the other side. Now, I don't know if that's true or false, because I'm just looking at the paint markings on the road.
that is true.
Okay.
I mean, it was
so
never intended to be two lanes there, but people feed into two lanes because they can. We have the same situation coming down Manville as you approach Washington Avenue, where it feeds into two lanes, sometimes even three. Somebody wants to turn right on red. Other people want to go straight, but don't want to get caught with the people turning left on Wheeler, and they invent more lanes. So
that's just one thing I observed before
Yeah.
they go ahead and do that. As far as the barriers being up there, I don't see why they need to be there in the winter. Summer is another story. So that's my own comment. I mean, at either location. And you did mention what's the fairness with other venues in town if they wanted to do the same thing. So I'm not really opposed to it. I'm just saying that there's a lot to consider.
Yeah, as far as the fairness issue goes, I mean, first of all, it doesn't seem like there's much demand, although we could certainly solicit, we could go out, and we have in the past, but we could go out. It doesn't seem like there's a tremendous demand, but if there is, I think we can reconsider that. I mean, one of my hopes is that the civic space will happen at some point. We're going to build part of it. And that is an area where, people could ideally bring food from different locations, could kind of spread that energy a little bit more. I understand that there's some, what's that?
In an ideal world, that would be good.
You would like that.
What? Tom Rooney's in favor of the civic space?
No, I understand that. I'm
This
saying
is the
that-
budget for today.
Does that like the door was locked?
Yeah, exactly.
If you look at Nova Park next to Love Street.
Yeah,
I can count on one hand when I see anybody sitting on a bench having a cup of coffee or doing something from any of the restaurants around. So the civic space will be whatever it is, and I hope it draws people, but I don't think that's an answer to this particular question.
no, I agree. It's not an answer to that particular question, but I'm just thinking kind of long term, if there is a greater interest in the possibility of eating outside.
So what is the status of the liquor law issue?
So if you are on government property, if you're using the right of way and your establishment is located adjacent to the outdoor dining area, as long as you get the appropriate SLA licensing, that's still okay. If you're on private property and you don't have, basically if you're on private property and you're not legalized or licensed to serve outdoors, you can't serve them.
And is that true of a place that serves food versus a place that doesn't? Does that make any difference?
Be anybody who has an alcohol license.
Yeah.
So it's a restaurant.
Any on-premise license.
So for Foley's, for example, if they were in a place where they could have outdoor dining, could essentially extend out there with our agreement. Anybody could. Lucy's could.
Lucy's only directly in front of their establishment. Okay, so after that.
Right.
Mhm.
So on the topic of parking, something that we've been seeing with the farmers market is that they've produced a really nice graphic map. I mean, it's been in business for a while, and they push it out to everyone about all the many parking lots we have within a 1-minute walk from all these places. And there's about 6 parking lots, I think, right? And no one ever uses the Rebecca Lane lot, which is up above Paul's office and the Shell station, but it's still only a very, very short walk to anything you want to do in this village center. So I think a kind of trend / public service announcement that we're pushing with all of our businesses is to help us push this to alleviate the problems on Wheeler. I think the people who have moved here in the last few years, which as we all know is many, the people who have moved here in the last few years don't think of Wheeler as a place they're going to park because they see that it's not really built as a good through street, and they already park in the parking lots that are adjacent and walk a few feet. But I think there's a kind of residual, there's habit, of course, for people who lived here much longer, that parking on Wheeler is something that you go to do. You're going to a business on Wheeler, you park on Wheeler. So it'll change over time, but I think there's a pretty clear shift as different people come in to where they're putting their cars. And so I guess I would ask as two of our great business owners, if I don't know if you ever want to have a parking tab on your website. I don't know if that looks off to you, but just to suggest where people should go, because that's how they find out where you are. And usually they type your address in, and then they try to go straight to the door. And that if we have all people from surrounding towns always coming to do that, then that creates some of our Thursday, Friday, Saturday friction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we have a map on there, and
You do, okay.
it could easily be added to the map. I mean, the map just shows, gets you to us.
Yeah.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, I've never added the parking.
And we don't have to reinvent the wheel because the farmer's market designed a nice layout of where to park in Pleasantville.
If they're willing to share.
Yeah, that's very close.
Yeah.
We'll share it
Tom,
with the chamber as well.
Isn't Rebecca Lane a permitted lot except I think on the weekend
No, it's after 3 p.m.
after 3 p.m.?
Yeah, anyone
It's
can park.
permit up until 3,
And it's
after 3
empty
on
all the
weekends
time.
and all week.
Even when it's just always empty. So,
But I will say, we've never had, most people feel like that's too far, even though it isn't.
3 minutes.
Right.
well,
I do it all
that's,
the time.
it's just changing of behaviors. Like I've said before in these conversations, when I go to dinner in Terrytown, I never presume that I will park in front of my restaurant. I know that I won't. I know I'll walk a few minutes because it's a vibrant, popular main street.
Mhm.
Yeah, you just grab whatever spot is on your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or park at Terrytown High School, which is where I usually park, and walk to wherever I'm going. So we're, the behavior will change over time, but it'll kind of take all of us to shift. Changing human behavior is difficult.
Yeah.
It'll take all of us to shift it.
And it makes me think we as the village should push that map more as
Yeah.
well. Maybe we can find a way to, is that something we've done already?
Yeah, we have a
Okay.
map. It's under clerk. We're gonna put it on the main page. I'll email it to you all. It shows time, 2 hour, where there's a 2-hour parking spot.
So that would be great.
The
Yeah.
maps are great, but signs work better if we want to keep that in mind. I don't know, do we have any signage experts on the?
As my wife says, get over it, Pete, no one looks at signs.
Michael, what are your operating hours normally?
Presently, we're Tuesday through Saturday dinner only.
So in theory, I'm just kind of thinking about the whole fairness thing. A really good argument that Alan always had is that space was communal. So people, will get, and I see it, people get, a sandwich and sit there eating breakfast time. So is that something that possibly that we could offer?
Well,
Like,
we leave the larger tables out just because it doesn't make sense to continually move them. People usually just turn them and use the barricades as the seating. Because the seating isn't really designed for like commercial.
staying out.
Okay, yeah, people sit at, especially from the ice cream store.
Okay, I was gonna ask you that, so
People from the ice cream store, there's only a single bench next to us between Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's somebody sitting there, they'll go over and sit on the barricades with the tables.
and that's in your,
It doesn't bother us.
okay, so I think that that's also something that it is a communal space. That
Right.
gives it, and it's not interfering with your business because it's dinner time anyway, so I think that also adds another reason why this helps everyone.
Mhm.
And I personally don't mind the barricades. I like that. I like the safety issue.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean that we should
I know that they're.
have it less safe, I just,
They look bomb-proof, but I feel safe.
no, I agree, yeah, I totally agree.
I think they're very, I would agree that it's really.
It makes people feel secure.
Yeah.
Make
An
people feel
industrialist.
safe, yeah.
Nothing would be nothing, I would love to dress them up if we were, if this was something that was recurring and we were able to.
Right.
Yeah,
We were always wondering whether we could.
The ones in front of you get hit fairly, not regularly, but I've many times seen vehicles bump them, so we need them, for sure.
yeah.
That's,
All right, any further comment?
I'm in favor of the outdoor dining.
And they can be extended for 6-month
Like,
periods. I
really
just need to
hard to
verify with the village attorney whether it's by way of resolution, what you.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you guys. Very.
God only knows when Con Ed will get out of your way, Alan. Although they seem, I have to say,
Well, they are replacing our pole too,
for such a
in front.
really horrifying project, these guys are doing a pretty tidy job, don't you think, Evan?
I'm impressed at how quickly they seem to be moving.
Yeah.
When I thought that this was going on, I'm like, oh, well, that's pretty much the summer golf. But
Yeah,
it seems like they're
and
actually.
they're battening down the hatches every night, and I mean, I've been impressed. So
That's
still
encouraging.
an unhappy process, but be good to have gas mains that work. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next item on our agenda was a follow-up discussion on the update to the BFJ moratorium analysis. So further to comments we made and that members of the public made, Susan Fabate and her colleagues at BFJ are working on some further information, including a means of saying, okay, here are the things that have already happened. Here are the things that we think are likely to happen as compared to just totally speculative. And here are the things that the zoning would theoretically allow to happen, but so far we are not aware of anyone wanting to do it. So just for example, the rest of the property that Vito Errico owns on Washington Avenue from the building he built at 39 down to the corner at Manville is a property that he has expressed an intention to develop, does not have a schedule to do it. There's nothing planned right now, but that clearly is much more likely to happen in the next whatever time frame. Susan's time frame was to look ahead 10 years. That project seems highly likely to happen as compared to some of the projects where nothing has yet been proposed, even though they could be. So they're going to come back with that new information, also adding to that the possibility of selling the Lane Plumbing or former Lane Plumbing lot for an office use, so as to factor into this analysis what kind of impacts that would have, primarily a traffic impact, but obviously no school impact, but so that folks have real numbers to look at for all these things, and that will help inform the question of should we or shouldn't we do that? Is that something that helps or hurts? Obviously, as we've many times discussed, overlaying on this whole thing is the conversation going on at the state level, which presumably we'll have more clarity on 2 weeks from now when we meet, assuming there's a state budget, which includes the proposal in various forms to overrule our zoning and require or permit substantially more development than our zoning code permits. So, anything to add to that thought, Tom?
Only that the lot that the village owns, I can't see putting another building on that lot. I can see using it for some other village good purpose. A parking lot, for that side of town, there really isn't one there, which would help the store keeps.
Also, it is a parking lot now. A piece of it is a construction site, but
if you're gonna take it away.
well, what was proposed, just to be clear, is that the folks who built 70 Memorial would buy that property
Right.
and build the building above the parking lot and give us the parking back.
Well,
So we wouldn't lose the parking.
has any thought be given to, if that space is available, to somehow get it to the post office? Where, no, I'm dead serious about that. I mean, their trucks have nowhere to park, nowhere to go. The one only non-metered spot in front of the post office is usually either filled up by a postal Jeep or somebody going to Starbucks.
Right. So here's what I would say. Long, many conversations with the post office people. The people right here in Pleasantville have really no control over any of these issues. That there was at one point a regional real estate operation that's now based in, I think, South Carolina or something. Lots of people have knocked on the door of the post office and said, what are your long-term plans? Is there a possibility to figure out a better place for you? is there a better place for you to park? We gave them parking permits, which they have. They're currently using them in the former Lane Plumbing lot. The permits that they used to have were on Cooley Street, head into the side of Key Food. That will be different when that's a through street. But in the end, I don't think that the post office has shown even the slightest inclination to acquire property to solve this problem. Have you seen any such thing, Eric?
They've engaged a commercial realtor who has gone through a search and has ended back up with us.
Mhm.
So,
I mean, you might recall at one point, the post office had a deal with LaDuca Auto when they were down by the sawmill at the foot of Grant Street, and the post office trucks used to park there at night. And then for reasons that I never fully understood, that deal disappeared. And then in the end, they moved all the trucks back and we gave them, they pay for them, but they got parking permits. At the time, spaces that we had a waiting list for other purposes, but obviously we need to support the post office in a general way. I don't know what their long-term plan is, and I don't honestly think they have a long-term plan. So
Interesting.
Well,
certainly not the village taxpayers' problem to provide them.
Any building to be built in the village going forward. I really stress that the ARB board and the planning commission really look at the architectural values of what they're building, because very few of what's gone up so far fits in anywhere. And that's not just my own personal opinion. It's my opinion based on what the village has already built. When they build, it's not if, it's when the builder finished building the next bunch down from, across from the theater and up to the other one.
Right.
Hopefully he's not going to copy the same architecture exterior that he has on that building, because the siding he already has on that building looks as commercial as could be, and it's already discolored and weathered, and it doesn't look like, a New England barn weathering. It looks like a building that's in need of some paint, and it's brand new. So I just hope consideration goes to the architectural point of view, regardless of in what or where.
So, I mean, as you can imagine, obviously we have an architectural review board that the planning commission functions as our ARB, and they have opportunities to comment. But as you can imagine, not every property owner has the same view about what things should look like, and in general, we have the same problem with homeowners who are required to come to the ARB in the overlay district, for example. Folks don't like to be told they can't do what they want to do. And so there's that little bit of tension that tries to work out to a compromise to come up with something that comes closer to center when there are two opposing views. I will say you were among those that says, that we have a mostly colonial downtown. I don't really think that's true. We have a lot of buildings that were built in the 50s and 60s that are lacking in architectural character.
I think we said a mostly colonial village, not necessarily downtown.
Right, but these buildings are for the most part inserted downtown. So, it's interesting. I often am jealous of the building stock, for example, in a place like Tarrytown or Katona. Pleasantville lost most of its wood frame building stock in the 40s, 50s, 60s for obvious reasons. And some other communities didn't. So,
Can I ask a question about the follow-up with BFJ? So just about the time frame. When are they likely to come back with
within the next week.
within the next week?
right,
She's away this week.
she's away this week.
Right, but next week she'll finish it up.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that.
Okay.
So we'll have something to be
So
looking
at
at
the next
our next
meeting, we'll
meeting
have
2 weeks from today.
theoretically, we'll also know a little bit more about the state budget,
Yeah, theoretically.
which is
Yeah.
really gonna,
I mean, I'm with you, Nicole, that I feel like it's premature to talk too much until we know what Albany is going to decree.
I agree, yeah.
That's for sure. All right. Any more questions on that subject? All right, so the last item on our work session agenda was parking regulations for Memorial Plaza Lot on Saturdays. The proposal is to allow parking to be free until 1 p.m. We're having a lot of trouble with the farm market, with first off, frustration with the pay meters, which are just add a significant piece of friction. You got to get out of a car, you got to remember your license number, the things are slow, you got to have whatever. I have been pushing Pango, and depending on the moment, people have either success or failure, depending on their cell carrier and all of that. As you will recall, the reason we introduced paid parking to begin with was the fact that a significant number of those spaces had turned into all-day parking, sometimes all weekend parking, and was in the way of the farm market, was in the way of local businesses, was in the way of the burns. I mean, you were in circumstances where some folks, especially folks who live nearby and don't have on-site parking, could park their car on Friday and move it on Monday. So you ended up with a noticeable number, perhaps between 5 and 15, depending on the weekend, parking spaces taken out of service. So the cure may have been worse than the disease.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that, you know, the farmers market is very important to, I think, the image of Pleasantville, not just for those who live here, but more broadly. And, you know, they've been voted the best of Westchester, I don't know how many times, but the competition among farmers markets in Westchester has become a lot stronger than it was when they started out.
Sure. And so, just to be clear, it's our farm market. They operated on our behalf.
Right, exactly. And so, you know, and so with the competition being greater, they're losing customers, we're losing customers. And this seems like it's just that extra obstacle, that extra friction that's making it difficult for them to attract people. And so,
and you know, likewise, we are hopeful, and I know it happens to some folks are headed to other businesses on Wheeler as part of their trip, and you can see the results. Those customers feed the downtown. So
right.
There's no perfect answer to this. We have a resolution on tonight to consider that, and if folks are agreeable to it, your people.
I am.
Because it still gives a clear out period, right, where it is paid on Saturdays, so people can't park for the
after one, you'd have to start. Yeah,
1 to 3 or something.
Yeah, there is the potential. This may re-engage some piece of the problem we sought to solve, but
well, if it does, then I think we reassess at that point, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, right.
you know, some of the
Gotta
a lot
try,
of the things that we're dealing with don't have a perfect solution. And
Right.
you solve one problem, you create another problem, right? So
that is the case. It's whack-a-mole.
I think this seems like the right move at this stage. You know, if then it becomes problematic, we revisit it a little further down the line. That's how I view it anyway.
All right, great. So at 7:57, a 3-minute break, at 8 o'clock, we'll launch into the regular meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless someone had something to
Deep
bring
I
up,
have one parking related thing.
go for it.
I've been kicking around the site. So we've talked about parking in a number of ways in the last half hour, and I've been kicking around this idea that I saw in a town in Massachusetts about senior citizen parking stickers. And I was thinking about the hang tags that we already have for our many lots in Pleasantville. They're permitted, and I was, I guess, asking for your blessing or support to look into this a bit more about what it would look like to have a subsidized senior citizen parking tag, not for the street, but for municipal lots that are owned by the village. And there's a lot of ways it could work in terms of an annual pricing. But I'm just curious what people think about this
So,
in principle.
so I'm curious what problem you're trying to solve, because it's funny you bring that up, because when you were talking about the parking map and being able to park closer or further away.
Yeah.
I was thinking about senior citizens and
Correct,
people for whom
Yeah.
parking further is more of a challenge.
Yeah.
So is that partly what you're trying to address, or is it more just accessibility to parking in general?
Accessibility in general, I mean, we do have several very close lots, and we have Plaza Lot, which is in the center of everything. We have the municipal lot at the end of Wheeler behind Dunkin' Donuts, which is very close to everything. We have a lot behind Lucy's, which is pretty close to everything, right? So, and we have a lot at Holy Innocents. We're behind, so there's 4 lots that are all surrounding the center. That would be, kind of incentivize people to think of, if I was more thinking of walking versus driving, like maybe I don't want to walk a half a mile after a certain age,
But this wouldn't,
but I still want to come.
the idea is that it would be free or lower cost parking, not that there would be parking that had been carved out as seniors.
Correct. It's more like you get an annual permit, you would get an annual senior tag that you would pay X dollars for, that you could hang up in a municipal lot.
So interesting question on how you would manage that. Anyone is whatever, 62, 65, whatever the number would be, you'd pay something, you'd get that lot, get that permit, that would allow you to park for free.
It would allow you to park like our hang tags. It's not free. I mean, you pay something.
No, I know.
Yeah,
Right.
annually, and
And would that then, that couldn't allow you to park in a permit space, right? So if you parked at a meter on Wheeler, you'd already paid in essence with that.
So I was not thinking about street parking though.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the lots.
So the lots, right, so some of the lots are permit only, although now not all day. So I
Right.
don't know, how about this? Why don't you inquire to the town you saw this in and ask how that works and what has been the result? Does that seem like a way forward?
Yes, I talked to our village clerk to try to get a kind of better sense of how many people are at a certain age, try to get the numbers right, and it's not that easy of data to
Yeah,
get
it's all, I
actually.
mean, there's no,
So,
you'd have to wrap your arms around the idea that there was a significant advantage to this because it's a potentially significant administrative venture. Right? So, and then there's the
and it
whole,
would be an opt-in program, it wouldn't be even.
no, I know, but I mean, you gotta verify this, come in, demonstrate how old you
Yeah.
are, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you have to, it's not that this will be a reason not to do it, but there is a rich business in young able-bodied people taking the car with the handicapped sticker.
Yeah.
Because you can, right? So whatever, why don't you inquire to the community that you saw it in? What do you think, guys?
Find out.
I mean, that would be the similar, I guess, broad concern about our hang tags in general, though, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, there's some, your license plate is on the tag as a permit, and
Right.
so that car can park there, or if you have
Yeah,
two cars, you can.
I guess
Sorry, it's not tied to a person.
No, I know, but I'm
Right.
envisioning that. As
Anybody can drive that car and park, you're entitled, you pay for a permit space.
I had not envisioned a very high rate of fraud.
I don't know that there,
Well, you
Yeah.
could attach it to the car.
yeah, I'm
also.
not sure how much interest there would be in it. Maybe it would be a small uptake and something that a relatively small number of people who did it felt like it was a nice benefit.
Yeah, another piece of it, honestly, for me is people who have lived here a long time who say things are changing too fast. There's nowhere to park. There's too many cars. Everything's too complicated. It's a way of saying, well, can we relieve one little complication for you? Or
You still be hard to park, but it'll be, you will already pay for it.
I don't think it's well.
Yeah, no, I understand.
It's
Look,
hard,
hey,
it's hard to park, 3 nights a week for 3 hours of each night is basically.
So I can tell you, I'm here, as you know.
Yeah.
My day job office is at 42 Wheeler. And so I'm here at all hours of the day, pretty much 7 days a week. And there are, it is a zoo at lunchtime.
I'm not talking about
Right.
Wheeler.
No,
I'm
no, I know, but I mean, it's a zoo just I see a lot of what goes on.
Yeah.
And I hear a lot about what frustrates people.
Yeah.
So what I have heard from seniors, for example, and I appreciate the effort to say, hey, we're going to give you a benefit. You've lived here a long time, whatever. What I hear is it's too crowded. I don't hear complaints about the price of parking. So, but maybe that could take the edge off the crowd. Right?
Well, yeah, the Memorial Plaza is not crowded at 1:00 p.m. on the week.
That is true.
And Wheeler is, and it's 20 steps away. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Incentivize the parking lots as part of it.
Okay, so let's find out how that could potentially look. I mean, do you know what town you were in when you saw it?
I do.
Okay,
Now that's all, yeah, but I can make some phone calls and
Great.
find out like a percentage of uptake for the program.
yeah, and how it's worked for you.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
we will depart work session. Are we ready? Yep. All right. Good evening, all. Welcome to the Village Board meeting for the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Monday, April 10. As is always the case, you are welcome to join us here at our board meeting second and fourth Mondays of every month at 80 Wheeler Avenue in person, but you can also log on via Zoom. The Zoom link is available at pleasantville-ny.gov, not only for our board meeting, but for other boards and commissions. And within a short period of time, the recording of the event will be available for an on-demand webcast of this meeting and meetings in the past at pctv76.org. Bunch of things on our agenda tonight and a few announcements to make, but the first item on our agenda is a public hearing to consider the moratorium hardship application from 444 Bedford Road. So is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Welcome to the public hearing on this subject. Is Eric Gordon joining us?
Yes.
There he is.
Mayor, I'm here, Mayor.
Thank you, Eric. So joining us via Zoom is Eric Gordon from Keenan Bean, our village attorney. So just to be clear, as I think many of you who are perhaps watching are aware, we established a moratorium on projects in the downtown A1 business district that captured the folks at 444 Bedford Road, which is the former Chase Bank building at the corner of Bedford and Wheeler. They have proposed a conversion of that 5-story commercial building into a residential building with a construction of further residential space and parking that would wrap around it. They were before the Planning Commission and then elected, at least for the moment, to stop their review. And as is permitted in the moratorium, they presented a memo and backup asserting a financial hardship caused by the moratorium and have sought a waiver from the moratorium in order to proceed. Have I accurately described that, Eric Gordon?
Yes, Mayor, that's correct. I mean, one thing, a couple of other small items. The proposed moratorium does allow, and I think as you alluded, further review of the application by 444 Associates. It just doesn't allow a final determination with respect to the SECRA review or the final Planning Commission, Zoning Board, or Building Department approval. So with respect to the moratorium. So I wanted to make that clear for the public and for the village board as well. And then tonight, as you said, tonight is the public hearing that's required on any application for an exemption from the moratorium. So that's what the board will be hearing information on from the public tonight. I can give the village board a little more of an assessment regarding what the applicant needs to show in order to demonstrate whether or not they're entitled to the exemption, if you so like.
Sure. Why don't you offer that brief summary of that.
Okay, so with respect to the exemption, you have an application by 444 Associates. You're going to hear from the public tonight and the applicant if the applicant chooses to present. The village board will then, once it takes in the information and closes the public hearing, it will need to determine whether the property owner, 444 Associates, has met its burden with respect to satisfying the requirements for the exemption. So it is the applicant's burden to demonstrate that the moratorium will cause them to suffer severe financial or economic hardship. After the duly noticed public hearing on the application for an exemption, the Board of Trustees may only grant the request with conditions, if it so chooses, as it may deem reasonable and necessary, provided that the exemption is determined to be the minimum relief necessary. No exemption may be granted except upon a final determination by the Board of Trustees that a severe financial or economic hardship was directly caused as a result of the moratorium. So that's basically the standard that after the board hears all its information and when it chooses to have a discussion with respect to the application, that it will have to determine whether it's met the standard of severe financial or economic hardship that was directly caused as a result of the moratorium. So I'm happy to answer any other questions the board may have, or you can proceed with the public hearing.
Great, thank you for that, Eric. And I think perhaps the applicant has a question or a comment regarding that. You want to make that now?
Sure. Just for the record, Jeff Gasparo, the attorney for the applicant on this project.
Yes.
While we have your attorney discussing the standard, and I do have some other comments to make, and I have one of the owners of the building is here and the architect. And I just want to seek clarification from your counsel that you're sitting here not in a legislative capacity, but in an administrative capacity. So if you demonstrated the hardship, unless there was some rational basis to deny it, we'd be entitled to a grant of the application. Mr. Gordon, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I believe I understand what you're saying, Mr. Sparrow. I think you're saying that it would be subject to an arbitrary and capricious review rather than the legislative standard. I haven't researched that issue. Certainly if that comes up and we get to the point where we need to get into the standard of review, I'd be happy to discuss that with you further. But I'm not giving you a final answer on that tonight. It's my assessment. So
I understand. I'm not putting you on the spot there, but I guess my point is, whereas you're used to when you're deciding whether you're, and Mr. Gordon mentioned the word legislative capacity, when you're deciding should we adopt a law or should we not adopt a law, it could be on any subject, you have extremely broad discretion. But here, the standard that you have to apply is more circumspect. It's the standard that Mr. Gordon read before about establishing a hardship. And that's my only point there. And unless you want to add anything else to that, Mr. Gordon, I'll let the mayor continue with the public hearing.
I think it would still look. I will give legal advice to the board in regarding that issue should it arise. But at the minimum, I would think it's subject to the, as you said, the arbitrary capricious standard. And whether or not there's a legislative decision, I do tend to believe you're correct, but I can't give a final answer tonight until I've had a chance to undertake some further research on that.
Okay, I just wanted to make that while you were discussing the standards.
All right, so then two other things to say. The first is obviously our public hearing tonight, to the extent that we have commentary from members of the public, is limited to the question of whether the waiver should be granted. This is not a public hearing about the project, whether we like it, don't like it, people do think it's right, they don't think it's right. None of those things are in play. The simple question is, are they entitled to a waiver as they have presented in their application? Then the other point to make is that it's our intention to receive comment. Obviously, you'll make a presentation. We'll receive comment from any member of the public who wishes to comment. We'll close the public hearing, and it's our expectation that we'll act on this at our next meeting 2 weeks from today, which is April 24th. So that will give us 2 weeks to consider what went on today in this hearing, but it's our expectation to give you an answer and to vote on the approval or rejection of the waiver application. So with that, I invite you to make whatever presentation you wish to make. I have your original proposal and memo that I could share on the screen if you want. You tell me.
Let me just, again, Jeff Casparo, attorney for the applicant. Last time we were here, Alex Beldotti, who was one of the owners of the
Yes.
building. Then I have Michael Beldotti, his brother. I mentioned throughout this, it's a longtime family owned property, and so getting more of the family tonight. Mr. Mayor, I had invited me last time either to make another full presentation. I think we made
You
a
did.
lengthy presentation.
And that is recorded as well and available online. So
And so I'm going to accept your invitation to essentially refer you, you were all here at that meeting, and refer you to that. And I just want to emphasize a couple of key points. The standard is whether we've established that severe financial or economic hardship. In addition to, and we discussed it at the last meeting, the general downturn and difficulty for owners of commercial real estate in general throughout the region and the country. We did show you in our application for this hardship waiver, and I'm going to use round numbers. You have all the specific numbers in the application, but using a very conservative analysis of what it costs to run the building, just to keep the lights on, to pay the taxes, to keep the building heated, insurance, the elevator maintenance contract, the essentials to keep the building operational. The round number, it's a little bit slightly more than this, but it's about $200,000 a year to keep a 5-story commercial, actually 2 buildings. There's the 5-story building, and then there's the 2-story building on Wheeler, to keep them running. And due to the loss of Chase Bank as the anchor tenant for that property, and it's an old building, it's difficult to rent those spaces. In this market, you have to be even more competitive to attract commercial tenants. And so it's over a 100-year-old building. It's difficult, and right now it's only 37% occupied when you take the square footage of the total of the 2 buildings. And so in its current state, we showed you the annual rent that we would anticipate this year if every tenant paid exactly on time, no tenants left. We had no other unforeseeable circumstances occur, is about $150,000 for the year. So we've shown, you can do the math across 12 months, the building is running at a loss. And the owners have taken a number of years to take the steps towards bringing the project that's currently in front of the Planning Commission into its current state. And it's not the final state, because the Planning Commission has still a lot of say and the ultimate say over the project. But they've invested in design professionals. One of the architect for the project, Hernandez, is here tonight. His firm has spent hundreds of hours on this project. Surveyor, traffic engineer. They've made a substantial investment in reliance upon your code and your comprehensive plan that encourages, and Mr. Mayor, just to add, you mentioned it was a conversion to residential, it's a conversion to mixed use. There would still be a commercial component.
right.
But this is an as of right proposal. These are uses that are permitted under your code, and in reliance on that, your comprehensive plan that encourages this type of development, they pursue this. And the owners of the building have been here. This is not, they're investing in this property themselves. This is not funded from the outside. They've been in the community for a very long time. And so it is the delay of the moratorium is, I believe we've established the standard under your code for the waiver. And I just want to go back to one other point. This is not the thumbs up or thumbs down for the project, or as you see it proposed. When we were last at the Planning Commission made a number of suggestions for us to come back to look at materials we're using in the facade. There's a lot of discussion about the roof line. So all we're asking, and this kind of goes back to what I was discussing with your attorney at the beginning of this presentation. We're only asking you to decide the narrow issue of whether we have this hardship under your code. This is not a final vote on the project. That lies with the planning commission. The public has a say in the planning commission. There's broad public participation in that. We have an excellent planning commission who was very active both times we've been in front of them. And so the project has a long way to go. And because of that, any further delay just puts that off further and further into the future. So those are the key points I wanted to remind you of, in addition to everything we discussed at the last meeting. I don't know if you want to take questions or go ahead.
One point of fact that I didn't find anywhere, and you can help me, is so Chase left 2020. Is that earlier? I'm trying to understand because the financial hardship, if it's based on the lack of a commercial tenant, an anchor tenant, it goes back, what, 4 years, 3 years? Something
Closed
like
at the end of 2020, that's when they basically, closed up. I think they moved down
Right.
to Washington, the new building. Consolidated, I know they consolidated another branch as well, but that was.
And Mike can tell you, but the process to bring this project forward, I know that they met with stakeholders in the community, met with an architect, really took their time, didn't rush a project to the table. And the fact of the matter is, it takes a long time for projects like this, from conception to approval. Then there's another gap before you ever even break ground to finally being open. So there's a long arc on a project like this. But they brought the pieces together. We had an informal presentation, as we discussed before, back in September in front of the planning board, to make sure we weren't going to bring something to the planning board, planning boards, planning commission. Some towns are different. To bring something that was going to be radically unacceptable. And so then we brought that and filed a formal application, and we only had one meeting with the planning commission to actually discuss that formal application before the moratorium took effect.
And am I correct in recalling that initially you thought you would continue the planning commission process, but then decided not to because of the moratorium?
No, basically within a week or two of, I think it was January 20. We were in front of the planning commission January 11.
Right.
I think it was January 23rd of this year that you adopted the moratorium.
Right.
And then I believe it was filed with the state January 30th. The date's correct.
So it runs through July.
So within, I would say within a week of the moratorium being filed and taking effect, I notified the building department in a letter with replacing the application on pause.
For fear that you would continue to invest in it and potentially need to change it based on a different zoning code.
Yeah, yes.
Right, understood.
Yeah, because I think your code, when your attorney talked about, you're allowed to continue meeting with the planning commission, but you can't get a final approval. I think your code actually uses the word "at your own risk."
No doubt.
That's just not a risk that we
Fully understood.
can go forward.
So
with.
did I understand you correctly that in the current occupancy condition, you have $200,000 a year in expenses and $150,000 in rent roll, so that the annual loss is $50,000, give or take, for 40 to 50 a month, something like that?
That would be we used a very conservative analysis. We didn't include deferred maintenance. If the building needs, every so many years, the building will need a roof. There'll be a major, investment required. You might have some of the other things off the top of your head, but if you were doing more of like a pro forma, where you were looking at the building as a business over time, you would include some of those more soft costs that come in periodically.
Sure, the life cycle costs of the building systems.
Exactly. So I would suggest it's actually much larger than
Can I
$50,000 or $60,000.
push back on that and say, obviously, a pro forma like that is what an owner or investor has to look at to consider what will it cost to operate this building over a long period of time and to maintain it and all of that. In this case, we're talking about a 6-month period. And now we're at the point in April where it's May, June, July, 3.5 months remaining. Obviously, there is some risk that we might extend that moratorium, and no doubt that has been a concern as well. But if the the cash out of pocket loss is $4,000 or $5,000 a month, I don't think that you need to incorporate the soft costs of the life cycle ownership of the building for this narrow 6-month time frame. Am
If
I
the building needed,
unfair to say that?
well, I don't know, if the building needed a new roof tomorrow, they'd be obligated for their current tenants to replace it.
Sure.
So,
You haven't said that that was the case.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Jeff said, like some of the things that we kind of didn't really hit on were like inflation's gone up quite a bit. Like I know like our heating costs are 30% more than were last year, even though it's kind of been a cooler, not as hot, cold winter. Insurance costs have gone up. So like most homeowners, you're experiencing some price shock on a few things like utilities, insurance, other things.
Absolutely.
So no different than us. So that's kind of some of the things that we're contending with. So.
right, and there's not a limitless supply of when a property is in a running at a loss. There's no incentive to invest in the property without an expectation of greater return. I'm speaking more generally. And one of the things that this project that we are proposing is in general, it's a major investment. If the project is approved, it will be a major investment in this property to rehabilitate this building. Whereas right now, it's in a state of limbo, and what may only be $4,000 or $5,000, or using the more conservative analysis, I would suggest that it may be in absolute terms that may not seem like a lot, but in relative terms to an owner of a property that's running at a loss, facing uncertainty, that is an economic hardship.
No doubt. Look, I mean, I think I can speak for everyone. I certainly can speak for myself. I don't want anyone to lose money on anything. And I want our downtown to be vibrant, and I want our property owners to feel as though this is a good place to invest, all of the above. The arrival of this moratorium arose, as you know, based on concerns by the community and concerns that perhaps too much was happening too fast, perhaps that there were other problems being generated by that level of activity. And we have an obligation to take a look at that. And that's why we did this. I regret that it harms anybody, not just you, but anybody else. By the same token, we need to respond to our community, and a bunch of people ask reasonable and thoughtful questions that we're working our way through. BFJ, our planners, provided some preliminary commentary at our last meeting and will again at our next meeting as we work our way through what all of those impacts are. But the question at hand here is whether you are unreasonably harmed by this 6-month hiatus, a chunk of which has already passed, right? That's the question we confront.
Well, have we established a hardship? I don't think the law uses the word unreasonable, but we're here to decide whether we've established a hardship. And we have a hardship. We've established it in black and white. Take the money for properties, losing money every day.
All right. So did you have other questions?
Well, I guess the hardship was established in your November application, right? When you applied. When you said that many of the space had been empty for over 5,000 days. Now, when that was part of the original justification for adaptive reuse of the building, right? So the hardship, it does go back quite a ways based on your own words, right?
It does,
yeah.
And I think that supports our position. We're not, before there was a moratorium on the table, we were talking about trying to rehabilitate a iconic 5-story building just diagonally across from Village Hall that even despite having involved owners that have been there for a long time, has fallen into a state of disuse. And that's a property that should be activated and invested in. And these are owners who want to do that, and they take pride in their properties. And aside from being an economic hardship, they've spent a lot of their own time working on this to try and improve this property. Mr. Mayor, you had mentioned BFJ's analysis. One of the takeaways I took away from that is that regardless of where the village sees a longer term projection for residential units in the A1 zone, there's capacity, the infrastructure capacity for us. I'm going to use the word smaller project because it is smaller, what we're proposing, than some of the other projects that have recently been approved in the A1 zone. So there's infrastructure capacity. I'm not sure that there is the same need for well, that goes to the larger point of the moratorium in general. But there's capacity. It's not like there's an urgency of lack of capacity for water or fire or ambulance and those basic services that you provide. So to the extent that that's relevant in for instance, balancing our hardship, the lack of strain on the infrastructure that this would cause, as established by your own consultant, I think supports approval of this hardship.
I mean, I think that analysis, which is being expanded right now, goes to our question of how do we respond to community concerns and should we change the zoning that we have? I don't think it really goes to the question of your immediate hardship. Right?
I mean, that's fair. The test, again, you're trying to read it out loud, is establishing a financial or economic hardship.
Right. Are there other board member questions? No. Right. All right. Do you have anything further to say before I invite any other comment from the public?
I mean, if there's anything that you'd like us to respond to after, but I'm happy to step down.
Look, again, I think I can speak for everyone. I speak for myself. You presented a thorough analysis. You've been thoroughly professional. I appreciate all of that. I regret any time we do anything that screws up somebody else's plans. But I also, as you well know, we are responsible for lots of dimensions of our community, and we're responding to that. And that's why we're in the situation we're in. So.
Understood.
All right.
And could I just add one thing though?
Sure.
The moratorium is an incredible interference with private property owners.
No doubt.
To pursue rehabilitation or any economic and socially desirable venture. And so that's why this is such an important decision. I do really want to stress that it is an interference. So I wanted to add that point, but I'll step down.
I mean, I fully agree. It's an interference, and we knew that. It's our hope and strong goal to work our way through the analysis and work our way through a conversation with community so that this moratorium does not need to be extended. That's not a promise that it won't be, but that's certainly a goal. Because you're not the only people who think they might want to do something with their property and are now wondering what that might look like. And then, as I said at the outset before that public hearing, all that's going on in Albany is an overlay on all of that. So, all right, I thank you for that. Let me invite anyone in the room who would like to speak, come up and give us your name and address, let us know what you think. And then once anyone in the room has spoken, I'll invite anybody who's signed on via Zoom. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Lynn Whiting, 10 Grandview Avenue.
Welcome.
Thank you. So one of the things I heard your attorney say was that there had to be economic hardship that was directly caused by the moratorium. And I think one of the things that Michael was trying to get at is that this has been an economic hardship for this developer for many years. And, I don't know how long it's been 37% occupied, but I don't think that is a direct result of this moratorium. There were a bunch of points that were made, if I can, I just would like to respond to. They said that this was a long-term, family. They've owned this property for a very long time. That's lovely, but it has no relevance to the issue at hand. They said that you are not acting in your legislative capacity right now. However, the moratorium was enacted in your legislative capacity. Okay, so when you're balancing the economic detriment to the developer versus what you're trying to accomplish over the 6-month period of the moratorium, I think you really have to consider what you're giving up by allowing a hardship waiver. But I have one, before I go on, I just do have one question. If the waiver is granted, is there a right to continue their project under the current zoning? Or would they still be subject to any changes in the zoning that could happen in the future? So in other words, under the moratorium, it's at your own risk. If you grant the waiver, is it still at their own risk?
Eric, I'll take that to you if you want to comment.
Right, so if new zoning is enacted before the developer obtains a vested right under the standard is a vested right standard with respect to if they've actually gotten approvals and started to do some of the development work and achieve what's referenced as a vested right under the law, they would be able to continue under the old zoning. But it would have to be based on the facts of how far along they've gotten, whether they've gotten their approval and actually started the development process, whether the moratorium continues for a long enough time before whether the zone, when the zone change takes place and how far along they've gotten, whether they've gotten their approvals and and commenced their development to the point that they've achieved this vested right standard. So that's really the standard. So they would be subject to it if they haven't reached the vested right phase.
Right, so Eric, would you say that this is a shovel in the ground? Would that be what the vested right would be?
I can't comment on what would constitute a vested right. I really can't, it really depends on a lot of circumstances. There's a lot of case law out there about what constitutes a vested right. So, but typically I can say though, developers are subject to changes in zoning if they haven't achieved a certain level of level of their project at the time the zone change is adopted.
Right. And that goes to another point, thank you, that the attorney made, that the applicant has acted in reliance on the current zoning. But any property is subject to change at any time. So the reliance, while, sort of emotionally you can feel badly about it, it's not, again, a relevant factor. The moratorium itself is you're still under study, right? So the plan as I see it right now is incomplete. There was discussion at the last meeting that design guidelines should be considered, changes in zoning should be considered. And if this project now proceeds through the planning board doesn't have the guidance that it needs as a result of this moratorium. Makes sense? So, for example, I'm just going to say design guidelines. We're not talking about the moratorium here, but I think you know what I mean. I also don't think that the planning board has the tools at this point to determine whatever environmental impacts may arise from this new project. Because even though we've got this study and the attorney said that, you've got capacity for everything you're not going to get, you've got fire, you've got ambulance, you've got water, everything that you need is going to be there for this project. I believe that this is still a preliminary report from BFJ.
No doubt.
I think they did not consider, and I don't know if it's in the A1 district, but I don't think they considered the property along the sawmill and what the impacts from that will be. And even if it's not in the A1 district, I think it should.
You mean the new apartment build at where LaDuca Auto was?
Right.
Right. So yes. So among other things, next week we'll have a revised version of that preliminary study that adds some more information about all of those pieces.
Okay, great.
Right.
So I think it's, the whole idea of the moratorium is to put a pause so that the village can make a determination as to how to proceed with the zoning. And if you allow this applicant who's experiencing some economic hardship, but which has not been directly caused by the moratorium, I think you are sort of thwarting the whole purpose of the moratorium.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further speakers in the room?
For the record, I'm Tom Rooney, 26 Hillview Drive here in Pleasantville. I pretty much agree with the lady before me has spoken on tonight. A lot of time was spent whether we should or shouldn't have a moratorium. And after quite heated debates of the past, it was chosen to have a moratorium because the town needed a rest. The village needed a rest from what was being built. And right now we're in that rest. And to me, to allow somebody to come in through a back door, because I don't know how else to explain it, basing it on hardship, I don't think that cuts weight. If their building is costing so much money, if it's so badly out of control now in terms of maintenance, why wasn't maintenance done all along the way so it didn't get this terrible? The idea that it's an iconic building, just because the building is old does not mean it's iconic. The building has some beauty to it, but it's far from being iconic. You want an iconic building, those of you that remember, possibly the old Holy Innocents Church was an iconic building, and look what happened to that. But that being said, the moratorium is here for a reason. Just look at the town now from what you do have control over and what you do not have control over, like the construction on Wheeler Avenue with Con Edison, not within our venue to do anything about. But the town is a mess. And this period that we're in now is to get a breather. And if it all comes out to say, yes, everything will be okay, then future development can happen. So the fact that they need to want to start this building right now, and I just don't see it, because it's a slap in the face to everybody else who was so strongly in favor of the moratorium. So we either have a moratorium or we don't have a moratorium. Because if this builder can do what he wants to do, then anybody else can do what they want to do. And if you set the precedent by this, then if somebody else wants to say that, I have a hardship living where I live in my own house. The prices have gone up astronomically everywhere you look, including our taxes. And so I just want to say that I don't think it should be granted. I think the moratorium should run its course. Hopefully you will not have to extend the moratorium, but if you didn't get the results that you needed in terms of information, then you'll have to extend it. But until that time is over, I don't think any A1 district building should be started at this time, hardship or no hardship. All we're hearing is the hardship, but what about the years that there were all the profits? Possibly the bank left here for a reason that nobody knows. Possibly because the building was old, run down, and it was more economical to move into a brand new building. That's not our problem. But it is a problem with the moratorium, in my opinion, and based on others. What I'm a little sad about is that there is an apathy in the village. I mean, there's nobody here, basically, compared to when the moratorium started in the high school, where a large number of our residents came out. Some of them probably don't even know this meeting is going on tonight, and there's no answer to that. You advertise it every week, but that's assumed people look on the computer. So not to waste any more effort or time on this. My opinion is that the moratorium should hold still and no new building should happen. And it is the opinion of other people that I have been in contact with, primarily neighbors on my own block. So with that, I thank you for letting me have the time.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
You gave me an opening to repeat what I've said many times. If you sign on to Village News at pleasantville-ny.gov, left-hand column, click on news, you can subscribe to agendas for this board or any other board, and it arrives via email. So if you want to pay attention to what's on the agenda in any given meeting, it'll come to you automatically. I encourage you to do it. And while you're there, sign up for Code Red. Anybody else in the room have a comment to make on this subject? All right, we have some attendees via Zoom. If there's anyone in the Zoom audience that wants to speak, please raise your hand in the Zoom window. Any speakers? I see none. Any further comment or questions from the board?
I just have one quick one, which is to say, I appreciate your comments, Mr. Rooney. I want to push back on the term backdoor that you used. In a diverse democracy, almost all of our laws have exemptions of one kind or another. And they have put forward a very well-argued proposal with a lot of data, and there's nothing sneaky about it. So they proposed for an exemption, and then we'll have a decision to make about whether to grant it, but it's all been above board and in good faith.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank those who did take the time to attend this meeting. I know not everybody could do so, but we appreciate it when you show up and contribute your point of view.
Eric Gordon, did you have anything to add at all?
No, Mayor, I think, I believe the board has, if the board believes it has the information, I mean, you could leave the public hearing open for written comment if you think it's necessary, if that's a concern, but certainly not required to. And if you believe that there's no further information you need, you have the authority to close the public hearing and proceed, at the next meeting to discuss the application. So.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Anything further the applicant wants to add to the discussion?
I'll just say from back here, thank you all for your time and consideration of this.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think based on the level of engagement we've had so far, that there is no need to keep the public hearing open for written comment, and that we can simply close it with the intent to reconvene in 2 weeks to discuss our respective thoughts about it and vote. So is there a motion to close the public hearing? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public hearing is closed. We thank you all. Thank everybody who joined the discussion. As reported, we'll be back on this subject in a couple of weeks at our meeting on April 24th. All right. We have another public hearing on our village budget, but let me just pivot to a couple of announcements to make. The first related, but unrelated to all of this, is the report that there's no report from Albany on the new budget. We saw today via the news that the budget has been pushed off by another week. At the moment, there appears to be some horse trading going on in the negotiation between the governor's goals for bail reform, which have been opposed by the Senate and the Assembly, and the governor's goals for what is described as her housing compact, which has also been substantially revised by the one-house budgets from the Senate and the Assembly. We have had vigorous and ongoing conversations with our representatives and the Municipal Officials Association. We have had an extended conversation not only with the entire Westchester delegation, but also with the folks at Department of Housing and Community Renewal, who are the governor's housing folks. Certainly our voices have been heard. How that will come out at the end is absolutely unclear at the moment, and I think none of us can predict. But I will say that there are a couple of elements in the governor's original proposal, primarily the transit-oriented development requirement that she hatched that would dramatically change the landscape for us in terms of development, and also restrict in very fundamental ways our right to control our own zoning. So we've weighed on that in very strong ways, which isn't in any way to argue against the need for more housing in our realm. But as I have commented in the past, the governor's goal is 800,000 new units in the next decade, based on a base of about 8 million units in the state. So we're talking about a 10% increase in housing units over the coming 10 years. If every community in New York State had done what Pleasantville has done already, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So believe me, we've made this point fundamentally clear, and likely we'll have more to report about it in 2 weeks. So a couple of other things to announce. As you have no doubt seen, and as was referenced tonight a couple of times, Con Edison has begun this process to replace the gas main all along Wheeler Avenue, and then we'll get to the end of Wheeler and turn left and go up in front of the bagel store and Holy Innocents, the Tompkins. Seems to be going along as well as one could imagine a disruptive project to go. You have a report, Eric, about how it's going and how long it lasts?
Yep, so far so good. They've been in direct communication with store owners as they have to interrupt gas service to actually do the replacement. So touching base with store owners, that all seems to be going well. And then, of course, at the conclusion of the project, Con Ed will be responsible for repaving Wheeler curb to curb.
So originally they said it might be 2 to 2.5 months. Are we still thinking that? I mean, they seem to be moving along pretty well.
Yeah, they said 2 to 3 months, and everything's weather dependent. So right now they've hit a good weather spell.
All right. Well, here's hoping the weather gods favor them, because it's a tough project. But a shout out to the contractor. They have buttoned up the site every night when they left, as well as could be expected, with trenches all around on Wheeler Avenue, and so parking and traffic throughput is okay at night, even though there are some obstacles to navigate around. So in the category of lots going on this week, today, PCI, the contractor for our Manville Road Improvement Project, returned for the project that they began last fall and have now started the continued work. You want to give a...
Sure. Yep. They're concentrating on doing curb and sidewalk replacement, basically from around the Dunkin' Donuts up to Tompkins Avenue on the north side of Manville Road. They'll proceed from that corridor, then jump to the bridge. The MTA bridge does take some coordination with the MTA, so they'll look to tackle that in the next several weeks, and then make their way down to Memorial Plaza, where they'll insert the new traffic signals that are on order now, likely to be delivered around July, August timeframe.
So a lot going on, and as has been the case for a long time, on the special projects tab on the left side of our website at pleasantville-my.gov, there's quite a bit more detail on this and every other project, right? That's right. All right. Next announcement, which is may or may not affect anybody. For all these many years, the Westchester County website and URL has been westchestergov.com. The county is changing that, effective, I think, May 1, to westchestercountyny.gov. Their goal being to get rid of a .com and use a .gov in a world where there are increasing phishing and spoof attacks. .gov suffixes are limited to government use, and it is believed by them to be the right thing to do. So I imagine there'll be a redirect at westchestergov.com, but come May, it'll be westchestercountyny.gov. Couple of dates to remind people of. Pleasantville Day is Saturday, May 20. Mark that on your calendar. The fire department parade has been scheduled for Friday, June 2. That's a follow-up to a big week in Pleasantville when, as is always the case, we have a Memorial Day service that takes place this year on Memorial Day, which is Monday, May 29. And then lastly, two things about the music festival. First off, it is scheduled as always for the second Saturday of July. That this year is July 8. And tickets are on sale now. But even more immediately, the tent city sites, which are very, very popular and sell out very fast, are going to be sold this weekend, Saturday, April 15, right here in this room. Folks who are on the Pleasantville Music Festival mailing list will have already gotten a notification of that. They sell out very fast. So if you're interested in having a tent site, you can go to the music festival site, pleasantvillemusicfestival.com. All the details are there. Other announcements?
Peter, on the Music Fest, there's
Yes.
also the lineup release party next Sunday, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct. The announcement of the lineup will be announced. Let me just make certain I got the right date.
I think it's April 16th, 7 p.m. at Lucy's.
You are correct. And that is
How many hours until
this year at Lucy's Lounge and Lucy's. Thank you very much, Lucy's, not only for hosting us for that, but also for signing on as a sponsor for the music festival. So get your tickets, get them now. Then you'll have the excitement of knowing you have tickets even before you know who's playing. It's a great day of music on 3 different stages. I don't think anyone has ever gone home disappointed. So, all right, other announcements?
Go ahead. You go first.
Okay. I have 3 announcements. One is that this year for Earth Day, which is April 22nd, we are promoting a Clean Up Pleasantville Day. So the concept is very simple, which is go to your block, to your street, wherever in Pleasantville you feel like it could use a little bit of a cleanup of picking up trash and so on. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. The more of us that get out, the more effective it will be. And then on social media, we've suggested places where people can post images if they want to sort of spread the word. So that's on April 22nd. My second announcement is that on April 20th from 7 to 9 p.m. on where we are now on the second floor of Village Hall, there's going to be a seminar on free energy audits. This is sponsored by the Pleasantville Climate Smart Task Force. We, as I've discussed in the past, we've gotten a number of grants from New York State that to encourage clean energy and to help our immediate community. And so we're going to have a new rebate program coming up that's going to be attached to energy audits. An energy audit is basically a professional comes to your home and gives you an evaluation of things that you can do to your home to improve the efficiency, to lower your heating and cooling bills, and so on. Often insulation is one of the things that is recommended. So we've got some experts that are going to come that night and explain the process, how it works, how you get an energy audit, which again is free, that's subsidized by the state. And then also talk about the rebate that we will be offering that is going to be attached to that. That again is April 20th from 7 to 9 p.m. here in Village Hall. And then finally, I wanted to say that our electric landscape equipment rebate program is backed by popular demand. And also because we have an additional $5,000 grant to subsidize that. So we've been putting out some information about that again on social media. We've expanded the program a little bit this year. So last year it was for lawnmowers and leaf blowers. This year we're including weed whackers as well. If you are interested in turning in an old gas leaf blower or lawnmower or weed whacker. We have a couple of dates coming up on, let me see, April 15th and May 6th, when you can come to the recycling center and drop off your old gas-powered item from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then when you purchase your new electric equipment, you email us a receipt to climatesmart@pleasantville-ny.gov. Again, email me if you have questions about this, or we're going to be posting about it on social media. And then you will get your rebate in the mail. So I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but if anyone has questions about exactly how that works, I'd be happy to give them more information.
Thank you for that.
My announcement is on Wednesday, April 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. The Pleasantville Chamber of Commerce is bringing back its Pleasantville Business Person of the Year. In 2019, I guess in 2020, we were going to celebrate the 2019 winner, and because of the pandemic, it all stopped. So at that time, it was Peter Luca from the Sora d'Italia. So he is being honored, and we're essentially picking up back from then. We're going to continue this going forward. So we didn't have anyone for 2020 or 2021. But if anyone's interested in going, if you're a member of the chamber, the tickets are $50. It's a sit-down dinner. If you're not a member, it's $65. Also, if someone's interested in joining the chamber that does not have a business, we have memberships for civil members. Civil members, I guess, is anyone that even is a resident can join the Chamber of Commerce. So with a lot that's going on, with a lot of new businesses possibly coming in with the development, if anyone's interested in being a part of these meetings, we usually meet once a month. So we'd love to we've had some civic members in the past, and some of you been on the board itself. So we invite anyone to join. A lot's going on with businesses in the downtown. So I think this would be a great time to be involved. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Paul. Other announcements? So the last one I had on a sad note is at the end of March, we lost Sam Mazzullo. Sam had been an employee here in the village, working in our garage for 25 years. He was born in Pleasantville, spent his entire life here. He was a member of the Pleasantville Volunteer Fire Department from 1974 on, and served as the chief of the fire department from 97 to 99, and then came back and did it again from 2001 to 2003. An extraordinary and long Pleasantville life, and one that was cut short too soon. But we send our sympathies to the extended family of Sam Mazzullo, to the extended family of Sam in the fire department and in our public works and village hall. A life that was well lived, and a person who will be missed. So, all right. With that, back to our agenda. Is there a motion to open public hearing to consider the fiscal year ending 2024 village budget?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome to the public hearing on the village budget. Eric Morrissey at a previous meeting went through the budget in detail and posted as attachments to our meeting agenda tonight, pleasantville-ny.gov. Click through to Novus Agenda are all of the details: the general fund tax rate, the debt snapshot, fund balance analysis, refuse tax rate, reserve and special purpose funds, wage schedule, and predicted budgeted expense for FYE 2024, as well as revenue for FYE 2024. Eric, you want to mention the highlights?
Sure. So total operating budget across our four funds: general fund, water fund, refuse fund, debt service fund, about $25 million. That's an increase of $1.7 million over last year. Again, over 50% of that related to healthcare increases and pension obligations. The general fund, which is our largest fund at $19 million, proposes a tax levy of $12.7 million. Results in a tax rate increase of about 2.5%. It is tax cap compliant. Water fund coming in at about $3.9 million due to fixed and variable rate increases at the Millwood Water Treatment Plant. Going to have to increase water rates by 2%. And then refuse fund at just under $1.2 million. We're proposing not to increase refuse rates this upcoming fiscal year.
So that is very similar to what you presented originally. They're having a few tweaks here and there.
Correct. So a couple things. The final assessment roll came in slightly lower than the first. So that increased the tax rate from 2.52 to 2.55. So very minimal amount. Then we're also looking to reduce curb and sidewalk funding next fiscal year with a plan to spend it right now, this current fiscal year, as we're doing curb and sidewalk replacements in a variety of village streets and in anticipation of our repaving that's going to happen this summer. So in order to align the timing, we need to undertake that work now. So you'll actually see a budget amendment on tonight's meeting agenda to allocate funds from fund balance for that, which we will do.
All right. So thank you for that. And thank you, Eric. Thank you, Noreen Regan, our treasurer, and your staff, and Alyssa, Eric's assistant, and all the department heads who worked through this budget. We've been through it department by department, and I think the board is thoroughly familiar with it. Any comments or questions to ask?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, the public may not realize, but the amount of work and effort that goes into this from the professional staff of the village is tremendous. When we have these, 3-hour hearings, just to review, we're reviewing work that takes multiples of that. And so, Noreen, thank you for your department. Eric, thank you. Hayley on your side, and Alyssa, thank you very much for all the work that you guys have done for the last several months, and hopefully you can all see your friends and families now again.
Yeah, thank you very much. Total team effort.
You're here.
Appreciate it.
Unfortunately, you only have to do it once a year, but it consumes a chunk of the time.
Big
So
chunk of the year. Yeah.
further comments, questions? There is no one in the room except Noreen, and I'm guessing she doesn't have a question because she knows this better than anyone. Is there anyone online who would like to make a comment? If so, raise your hand in the Zoom pane. There being none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. The public hearing is closed. All right. To the resolutions. Let me share my screen. And then Paul 122.
Result, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 27th, 2023, and the organizational meeting held on April 3rd, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Congratulations again to Nicole, who was sworn in for her third term, and Paul sworn in for his second, even though it doesn't seem like it because he was hidden from view except via Zoom for a while.
I try to make up for it by being everywhere else.
And you're doing a good job at that. And congratulations to John Bukel, who was appointed as took the oath of office as our new village justice, having won the election. And a special shout out and congratulations to John Curley, who departed the role as village justice after 20 some odd years in the black robe. So welcome, John Bukel. Thank you, John Curley, and thanks to you guys. So comments or questions on the minutes? All in favor? Aye. Motion approved. 123, Nicole.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village treasurer to create a special purpose account for justice court grant funds.
Is there a second?
Second.
That is an optimistic sign that grant funds may be forthcoming.
They were received.
Beautiful.
Ooh.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. 124, David.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following budget amendments for fiscal year ending 2023 as listed below. $8 from general insurance to general property taxes, $20,000 from contingency to PCTV, $8,000 from parks and equipment to parks and utilities, $10,000 from parks and equipment to pool repairs, $1,500 from camp outside service to rec youth supplies, $500 from rec youth credit card fees to camp credit card fees, $25,000 from workers' comp insurance to police overtime, for a total of $65,008. From the water fund, $281 from water insurance to water property taxes, $28.57 from water administration software to water distribution hydrants, for a total of $31.38. Increased revenue expense from the general fund, $53,857 from state aid to the Justice Court program, to police overtime, $28.71 from state aid Justice Court administration program to court supplies, $25,000 from state aid Justice Court administration program to interfund transfer to special purpose, the Justice Court grant funds. Appropriate fund balance from the general fund, $66,000 transfer to capital. That is for the Memorial Plaza Civic Space Phase 1 design, $100,000 transfer to capital for sidewalk reconstruction for fiscal year ending 2023. Increase in revenue expense from the capital fund, $66,000 interfund transfer from general funds. That is for the Memorial Plaza Civic Space Phase 1 design, $100,000 interfund transfer from the general fund for the sidewalk reconstruction fiscal year ending 2023.
Is there a second?
I do have a typo. That first one on increased revenue and expense. For police overtime, it's from the fees they collected. I gave you the wrong line there.
So which line is that?
It's A0151524, that's the traffic control fees.
Is that,
Not Justice Court.
is
The revenue source.
70's good, it's not that.
Well,
That's
I was
the
asking about
the
that.
53,857?
Right, that's fees they collected. It's
Understood.
A0151524.
Okay,
Traffic control.
Okay, that makes more sense.
so
Okay.
are the mover and the seconder, I was gonna say, if we can find a way to fund police overtime that way, hey.
Exactly.
Yes,
The mover and the sector accept that correction?
I'm okay as amended.
All right. Comments or questions?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Michael, 125.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the abstract for payment of claims dated April 10th, 2023 for fiscal year 2023, covering check numbers 106,804 to 106,963. From the general fund, $201,528.73. Water fund, $141,305.67. The capital fund, $8,727.09. From the refuse fund, $8,001.45 for a total of $359,562.94.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions on the payment of claims? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 126, now payment of claims related to the forthcoming fiscal year.
Result, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the abstract of payment of claims dated April 10th, 2023 for the fiscal year of 2024, covering check numbers 106,964 through 106,966. General fund, $32,431.06, and for a total of $32,431.06.
Is there a second?
Second.
See, that was you were not certain you were
Well,
willing to second.
No, I just was gonna ask a question, which is how does this work exactly that we're issuing payment of claims for
Music festival.
Right, it's
2025?
an expense related to a 2024
I
event.
see.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. P&L versus capital.
Yes. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? Aye, motion approved. 127, David.
Me, I think.
Oh, sorry. That's because you talked. I had your voice in my head.
Stop the talking. Okay.
127.
All right. Whereas the Village Board of Trustees reviewed and discussed the right-of-way request by 80 Highview Terrace at the work session held on April 10, 2023, Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby refers the right-of-way application by 80 Highview Terrace to the Planning Commission for review and comment.
Is there a second?
Second.
A follow-up to a work session discussion we had. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. 128, David.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hourly rate increase for the following recreation assistant. Jaydee, is it Mejia? From $20 to $25 effective April 11th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Michael, 129.
129, right?
Yes.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of part-time available recreation assistant Hayley Moses at an hourly rate of $20 for all recreation programs effective April 17th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Back to Paul, 130.
Result, the village administrator or superintendent of parks and recreation is authorized to execute the pool concession agreement with Westchester Food Services for the 2023 pool season in the amount of $1,600.
Is there a second?
Second.
Westchester Food Service provided this service last year and has in many past years. They are sort of specialists in a rather narrow business. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 131, Nicole.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the following ticket rates for the 2023 Pleasantville Music Festival. Lineup announced April 17th, 2023 through June 30th, 2023. Adults, $65. Students, seniors, $35. The week of,
Actually, yeah, Pleasantville Music Festival.
yeah, okay, that makes more sense. Week of Pleasantville Music Festival, July 1st through July 7th. Adults, $70. Students and seniors, $37. The day of the event, which is July 8th, 2023, adults $75 and students and seniors $40.
Is there a second?
Second.
Get your tickets early. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. 132, mayoral appointments. I'll read that. Resolve the Board of Trustees hereby approves the mayor's appointments of the following persons to various boards, committees, and commissions. Planning Commission and Architectural Review Board, 3-year term Eric Brotherton. Zoning Board, 5-year term Serge Budson. Ethics Board, 3-year term John Nona. Conservation Advisory Council, 2-year terms Helen Muir Chair, Jennifer Frawley, and Sophie Worley. Beautification Committee, 1-year terms Chair Kathy Dinkle, Tanya Cunningham, Elizabeth Ward, Pat January, Marilyn Ross, Marlene Canopy, Virginia Pancati, Elsie Rattenbury, John Muller, Merrill Chimikowski, Amy Melissa Gladstone, and Maggie Murphy Verdon. Pleasantville Recycles Committee, all 1-year terms. Chair Stephanie Ells, Edwin Kuo, Andrea Garbarini, Helen Muir, Virginia Pancati, Bridget Egan, Pradeep Bowie, Kim Turner, Dan Turner, Francesca Bonavita Lawler, Carolyn Ramsey, and Gina Sadao. Public Arts Committee, all 1-year terms. Co-chairs Marlene Canopy and Stuart Vance, Lisa Hertz-Apcon, Andrea Garbarini, Janet Langsam, Barry Schenkman, Jim Coleman, Gregory Nemec, and Leslie Shore. Pedestrian and Traffic Safety Committee, all 1-year terms. Chair Samantha Hoover, members Adrian Knott, Melissa Russo, Terry Conway, Andrea Putnam, Rosemary Swazi, and Irene Mustich. Climate Smart Task Force, all 1-year terms. Chair Russ Klein, Helen Muir, Teresa Conway, Anjali Puri Sautoff, Ben Serapin, Gerard Falco, and Craig Gibson. Is there a second?
Second, although I don't know if we should do this now or later, but there's a new person on Climate Smart, and I also think that Cherry Falco should be removed.
You want to add the new person now?
Yeah, it would help. Yeah, I need to find his name though. Forgetting it at the moment.
Jerry Falco no longer a part of it.
Yeah, he's no longer, he just doesn't have the time really.
And does he wish to remain a member even if he's not really tremendously active? I mean,
Well,
I leave that to you.
I'm not entirely
All
sure.
right, I mean, we can come back and have
Yeah,
another resolution when you get the name. So,
right.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. 133. David, right? Right.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the 2023 vendor application for the Pleasantville Music Festival.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. One motion approved. 134, Michael.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to sign agreement with PAMAL Broadcasting, 107.1 The Peak, to advertise for the 2023 Pleasantville Music Festival in the amount of $5,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Continuing a longstanding relationship with 107.1 The Peak, morphed in various ways, but goes back a long way. We appreciate them being in the game. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 135. Paul. Do we need to read them all, or can we say as further stated?
You can have it, I just.
Okay.
Okay, be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville, location code 40104 hereby establishes the following as standard work days for its employees and will report days worked to the New York State and local employees retirement system based on the timekeeping system or the record of activities maintained and submitted by these members to the clerk of this body, as is stated here in the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments, questions?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, she's trying to hurry us up. Aye. Motion approved. 136.
Surprisingly, I think that's the first time we've ever done that.
It's your turn.
I know.
Well, after into the third term, you start to kind
This
of,
is why.
yeah.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby waives paid parking requirements within the Memorial Plaza parking lot on Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
As the result of a long conversation, we established paid parking in Memorial Plaza when we established a variety of changes and made permit parking limited only till 10 a.m. Should we clarify this to indicate that this refers only to the track side and not to the meters, the coin meters?
Well, we refer to it as the Memorial Plaza Parking Lot, so the interior lot.
Is that
Yeah, I mean,
clear in the
we can-
world?
We can add that for the record, interior lot.
Yeah. How about we say in the Memorial Plaza parking lot between the median and the train tracks?
Okay.
Can we update that to, is that okay with the mover and the seconder? I just don't want someone to read this and misunderstand what that meant. Comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. That would be the last of our resolutions.
Motion to adjourn.
Any further comments or announcements?
No.
Last thing I wanted to say was, as certainly anyone with kids in the school knows, and certainly anyone in the school neighborhood knows, we had a horrifying incident with a false claim of an active shooter at the school district. And I just want to offer a shout out to everybody involved, but most particularly the Pleasantville Police Department and to our neighbors in Mount Pleasant who assisted, as well as the county police and a couple of members of the state police. We are fortunate to have so many law enforcement agencies so close, and we hope never to need them. Blessedly did not in the end need them that day, but a scary moment for lots of people. And I just want to offer a note of congratulations for the thorough professionalism and cool heads of Chief Eric Retzner and his team. And Lieutenant Jesse Woolman was in charge of the scene until the chief arrived. And also a shout out to the school district. I think a lot of the work that goes on and continues to go on and will continue to get deepened between the school district, the village, and the police department made that event get resolved as quickly and successfully as it could be. And as you no doubt can imagine, there have already been and will continue to be opportunities to review all that happened and to make certain that we're as ready as we can be for events of that kind and to learn from that experience. So here's hoping we don't see that again, but it's a grim reality in our world that that happened, I think, in more than 200 school districts across New York State all on the same day. So,
Wow.
all right. Want to make a motion again?
Can we leave, please? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, good night, and thank you. See you in 2 weeks on the 24th.